they've created this exclusivity and demand for a brand by completely going against everything else everyone else is doing in retail right now.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 19 of the vlog, and it's time for something a little bit different. This week we are going to have a group discussion all about a particular topic that has been all over social media and across the news this week. Let's do it.
So guys, thank you for joining me. We're doing things a little bit different for this week's vlog. We thought we'd get a bit of a roundtable discussion going, all about the digital transformation of the high street. Now I know, very hot topic at the moment following the news of Boohoo buying Debenhams, which was a huge and really interesting purchase. And ASOS are looking likely to potentially buy the Arcadia brand, so Topshop, Topman, Miss Selfridge. So there's lots of moving and shaking in that kind of industry, and we'll start there for now. What are your guys' thoughts on these kind of huge online fashion retailers snapping up big heritage high street brands? From what I've been reading online, a lot of people seem to think that from the perspective of the online retailers, bit of a no-brainer.
Commercially, it's genius. Like the Debenhams website turned over 400 million quid, made 12 million pound profit, and they bought it for 55 million quid. Well, it pays itself back in 4.5 years, and they've instantly scaled their business by 400 million pound and bolted on home interiors, sports, lifestyle, without even having to lift a finger to sort out the internal organisation to do it all. If you got the cash, it's absolutely genius.
The smart thing as well about the Debenhams acquisition is it gives Boohoo an entire new market that they previously couldn't have gone after without changing their entire proposition. I mean, that their target demographic is pretty saturated already. You know, you've got the misguideds of the world who are in that space. So the next logical step for a retailer is what other audience can we go after, and a brand that has a ready-made customer base just presented itself to them. So yeah, really, really smart move of how they can increase sales and go to an entirely new demographic.
And I think also enter the market with trust as well, right, guys? I mean, you go in with a name like Debenhams, regardless of who's fulfilling it, whether you know it's Boohoo or not in the background, it's a name that we all trust. So from a conversion perspective, if I'm landing on Debenhams site versus Boohoo and they were trying to sell me some electronics or some of the brands that Debenhams would have previously sold, I'd convert better on Debenhams than I would on Boohoo.
Yeah. I agree with you, but the question about the high street's an interesting one, right? Because we've got clients where online sales increase, like are just higher if you're within 25 miles of that person's store. Like stores are like one big always on advert for you. They increase your sales. And there's stuff, right? Like that's why made.com have stores that you can't buy anything, but you get to go and touch the sofa, because there's certain things you want to go and touch and feel the quality. And interestingly, Boohoo bought Karen Millen, didn't they? Now, is that going to go completely online, or is there a certain price point in clothing where you're going to go and want to touch it, see it, feel it? Don't know. So it's going to be interesting as brands exit the high street. Are we going to see some coming back, maybe in a more strategic way, not necessarily saddled by those massive legacy kind of rental agreements they had? Don't know.
Yeah. And there still is the power of now as well. We get more impatient as consumers. The shortening of delivery times, we kind of expect things next day, maybe within a few days. The power of stores is that they have it now. If you look at somebody like an Argos, not traditionally a high street, but similar kind of big footprint of stores, their whole concept is click and collect. Like, come up, buy it, you can pick it up in store right now, and it's a huge draw for them. So I'm wondering how much of the stores will pivot to have that. I know I personally started a project a long time ago with not an out-of-town retailer, but the whole point was to make their stores big warehouses, but have huge stock inventory in those warehouses, effectively in stores, so that people could come in and pick it up on their terms and not have to wait for a delivery, not waiting for delivery, but then also make the stores something else. They're not just there to browse, they become coffee shops or places to meet or whatever it might be. That's how I see it, a bit of the shift.
The opposite end of the spectrum is Primark as well, isn't it? You know, everyone's asking about why they're not going online, especially in the midst of a pandemic. And, you know, a lot of the thought piece around that is that their price point is simply too low. Like what would you, CPCs and conversion rates would you have to perform at to actually turn a profit against some of those products.
It's 100%. You spot on with that, Andy. That's exactly why they're not going online, because they don't make enough margin on an item or a basket of items to support the logistics and the operations to get that item picked in a warehouse and out to someone and still make a profit at the end of it. You're absolutely
I would be really interested to see what the returns rate like for a Primark customer versus a normal customer. If you're talking 35% normally, does it go up or down because of the lower price point? Does it make it a lot easier? But I kind of like that they're not as an online person, but that they're sticking to their guns, and it's a case of we will only operate in store. So to have us and they've developed a good enough brand where people are willing to go out their way and visit them. I mean, we saw in lockdown the queues outside of Primark, which personally is baffling, but they've created a buzz around their brand that people are willing to queue to go into Primark. And actually, if you make it, it's almost like they've created this air of exclusivity by going, it's only available in store, so you can only get it there.
I think it's not as black and white as just like buying online or buying in store. Like, you don't have to be able to buy online to have like an online presence. Like, if I think about like when I was like a teenager, like shopping was such like a social thing, and like we'd all meet up and go to the shops, try things on. We wouldn't spend any money, but we'd go to the shops and we'd try things on. That was a social thing. Whereas now, I imagine people don't really do, obviously COVID aside, I imagine that's not as much a thing. It's more like people are like looking through people's Instagram and tagging each other in Instagram posts and like sending images of like outfits and things like that. So I think Primark potentially are not kind of going to last that much longer if they don't have some sort of online presence. They don't necessarily need to buy, you don't have to buy the product online, but you need to engage with your customers online, and that's where people are. They're not in store anymore, they're looking online.
It's true. I guess you just gotta, I get that, and I think there's a lot of truth in that. But the key strength is that they're really clear on what their differentiating factor is from every other brand, which is you can't get it this cheap anywhere else. It's just like you use Amazon because it's unbelievably convenient, because it'll come the next day. You use Argos because you know if you're really desperate, you can go and pick it up that day. And you use Netflix because it hasn't got any bloody ads. Like, if you're really clear on the one thing and you stick to it, actually that's going to give you quite a lot of mileage. But I do agree with you. They are. There's only so long you can go without being part of the conversation, Hannah. You're right.
Yeah. And like sort of tap into all of those 3 points is how I would imagine Primark would go online if they were to do it. You know, when you go back to the exclusivity point and tap into that demographic that is online, that is social, that they're maybe not engaging with. The thing that ticks all in boxes is if they were to work with an influencer and say, here is that influencer's range, this is Primark, you can only get it on Primark's website, and that is the only thing they are going to sell, that would sell out right away. You know, and you know, you've got a limited edition range. If you get the right person behind it, and the first thing that is going to be available on Primark's website in limited quantities, you know, it'd probably crash the website within minutes, kind of thing. And that is ticking into all those things. Is they've created this exclusivity and demand for a brand by completely going against everything else everyone else is doing in retail right now.
I want to put something to you, which is in the Amazon rainforest, they burn the forest back so new things can grow, right? And as the high street empties and landlords are desperate to fill those spots and rent levels get to a place that was unbelievable just a short time ago, are we going to see a new crop of startups? You go to every high street and it looks the same. Is this going to be the point where it starts to look different? Because we now see a new crop of startups try to leverage that space.
I think that's a really good analogy, because there's always opportunity for the right brand and the right person. They will see that opportunity, because you would absolutely expect at some point that commercial property price is going to come down, whether it's rental prices or the entire unit comes available. And you know what I would like to see the high street emerge as is, if you must have all walked down Bold Street in Liverpool. That kind of organically grew to be this long street of all these independent coffee shops, restaurants, clothing shops, and became this real go-to destination. And a lot of the you won't recognize a lot of the names walking down there. One of two brands have managed to get in early. And that is how I would imagine that would go. A lot of the people who don't have the same number of overheads can jump in, and you would hope to see some independents hopefully take advantage of that.
I wanted to just quickly go back to click and collect. Now, I think pre-COVID, it was kind of quite widely agreed that to get folk into stores, you had to offer a lot of kind of like experiential marketing tactics. So you had to give someone a reason to go in aside from just the task of shopping, whether it's a product demonstration, a giveaway, an event, whatever. And I wondered whether click and collect could become a major focus for stores, and it might sort of bridge the gap between the enjoyment and the cultural love of shopping in store and the ease and safety of shopping from your sofa.
And this is just like my personal view, but I just don't really see click and collect being like a big thing, not for like a lot of like high street retailers, because if it was something, I don't know, like a certain like big designer that like you want that specific product, then maybe I'd go out of my way. But if I'm just buying like a dress or like, I don't know, something for the house, and someone's only offering it on click and collect, I'm just going to buy it somewhere else because I can't be bothered to drive there to pick it up. Like when so many people offer delivery.
I agree with Hannah. Like, it's click and collect is there because you've got no other way to do it. You need it today. Yeah. I'm going to have to go and click and collect it. Like at the moment, we're all at home, so delivery is easy. When we're all back into a place where we are spending some time in the office, we're making school runs, we're going to the gym, we're on the move, click and collect might play a bigger part than it does now, because you can get something on the way to something else, and it saves you having to sort out a missed delivery. Online has had a fantastic year because people can't get to stores and we're all at home, so the delivery solution is easy. I think the challenge for the online retailers is to say, once we're not at home every single day, how are you still going to make it as convenient for us to get those deliveries so we're happy to continue to order online in this volume? And it'll be that question that decides how much slips back to people just going to stores.
Potentially collection points could be a thing, because that's convenient, isn't it? And if you can go and collect all your things from various different stores from a certain point, maybe that could be a thing. But I think, like Andy said, like, I don't ever remember delivery being an issue before COVID. Like, it's so easy to get things delivered to work and stuff like that. Like, it wasn't an issue before, so I don't think it'll be a big issue afterwards.
I think we hit on the point though around what click and collect is designed to do. It's convenience, isn't it? I need to know it's in stock, and I need to know that I can go and pick it up, and hopefully I'll be passing by. Or for bigger items, like I think the best experiences you get are people like Screwfix and other places like that, where you're going to drive probably because you're picking up something a little bit bulky, or you need it there and then, like if you're a tradie or whatever. If you take the high street as what you imagine it to be, which is a kind of somewhat inaccessible location, certainly in the UK, because of the way that the UK prioritizes and has prioritized car infrastructure for the last 4 decades, potentially, where it's not that easy to get to. So anything bulky is quite hard if you want to get it out. The high street, I think, will change quite dramatically, where you've got these bigger, more experiential stores where you can potentially collect multiple items from multiple retailers from. If you think like a Debenhams was to say, you can come pick up, but you can also pick up from all these different retailers. It's hard for them because obviously other people will use their service, but you're getting them in store, which naturally you end up browsing, which was always the goal. But then around it is what you want the convenience for. It's like, oh, there's a coffee shop, or there's a restaurant, or there's a gym or a yoga studio. I'm thinking, so that's the most millennially type just splurge. But the more convenient things that people are looking for the high street to evolve into around it means that actually it's more attractive, because it's not just that one item anymore. It's the several things I can do in conjunction of having a browse. And we probably shouldn't discount the inspiration side of it as well, the kind of stimulus of a shopping environment, certainly around gifting periods and things, when you're looking for how hard is it to find gifts for somebody in an e-commerce environment, but a quick walk around a typical John Lewis or Debenhams and you find the stuff that you would have never thought of. That might change the way it becomes, where you're looking for a bit more inspiration. And you see stores like, it will be bad for them now, but like the Entertainer and other people like that have popped up and grown significantly because You didn't know you wanted a robot dog. You don't need one, but you went in, found one and bought it anyway.
I would potentially argue like the other side of that though, Dan, that I think, like I said before, like people used to go in store to shop and look for inspiration, but actually I think, and certainly like anyone like our age and above will still do that, but I think there's that younger generation that are kind of coming up that potentially just wouldn't think to go into store and look for that. Like it's something we've all done in the past, and they're going to people's Instagram page or Pinterest and searching for like gift ideas, and that's how they're getting their inspiration. So I think it's important not to remember that people do get inspiration online as well. As it's sort of just how easy, if you've literally just got a website with all the products like just on it, like that's not very inspirational. But if you've got like a Pinterest board and stuff like that people can add to, that is a way people go about like researching and finding ideas.
What's cool about that is it then creates a new opportunity for how you market those products, right? You've got to use really strong PR and influencer campaigns to reach out to these people, to put your product, whatever it may be, in front of a new audience in a non-traditional manner, which is they ain't going just to Debenhams and looking of finding you. The people that then produce these products, the small kind of indies that then sell it into a Debenhams and mass produce it or do that, have to then find a new way of using that, which I think is quite exciting because it creates new channels.
I think you touched on something really key there, which is we're talking like we're going to come out of this and it's going to be like walking into a different world that we don't recognize. And the reality is, you know, when computers became a thing, we all still have a pen and we all still have paper and we still use pens and paper. It's just that we use them a little bit less for a slightly different thing. And that happened over time. But there was a moment where the shift started moving, and I think we will come out of this and we will see that shift start to move at more pace than it has. But I just think we need to be realistic that we're not all going to come out of this and having stopped using pens and paper.
And that's going to be the big challenge, I think, to the more well-established brands. So when we were talking before about what the new high street might look like, and we said it's an opportunity for independent retailers because of the falling value of commercial property. The challenge is going to be, how do those big brands react? Because when we're saying then, people aren't going to go shopping. They're not going to go on the high street. They're not going to go and browse those products anymore. So if your customer is no longer coming to you, how do you bring your product to your customer? You know, so many brands have just sat back and just, they've lavished in this brand name and this high street presence for so long. They're the ones who are really going to struggle, and they're the ones who are going to have to adapt in, what this brave new world might look like.
Woo! Well, some great stuff in there to take away and digest, but we want to hear from you guys. Do you agree with any of those points? Disagree? How do you think the digital transformation of the high street is going to play out over the next few months and years? Let us know in the comment section below. We'd love to get a conversation going, and I'll see you in the next video.